Join us in the pledge. Present arm. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order arm. Retire the color.
Our next part is to honor our prisoners of war and those who are in action. So we will have a presentation of the POW.
Test. There it goes. Okay, we're gonna do the setting up of the POW MIA table. The tradition of setting up a separate table in honor of our prisoners of war and missing comrades has been in place since the end of the Vietnam War. The manner in which this table is decorated is fully special symbols to help us remember our brothers and sisters in arms. The POW MIA table is a smaller than others, symbolizing the frailty of one prisoner's alone against his or her oppressors. The table is separate from the others. The white tablecloth draped over the table represents the purity of their response to the country's call to arms. The empty chair here, depicts an unknown face representing no specific soldier, sailor, airman, or Marine, but all who are not here with us. The table itself is round to show that our concern for them is never ending. The Bible represents faith in a higher power and the pledge to our country founded as one nation under God. The single red rose reminds us of their families, loved ones. The red ribbon represents the love of our country, which inspired them to answer their nation's call. The candle and its yellow ribbon symbolizes the everlasting hope for a joyous reunion with those yet accounted for. The slice of lemon on the bread plate reminds us of their bitter fate. The salt upon the bread plate represents the tears of their families. The wine glass turned upside down reminds us that our distinguished comrades cannot be with us to drink a toast or join festivities of the day. This table will be set up here for the remainder of the presentation. And we would like it, to let you know, though, that nobody's supposed to sit at it or lean or set anything on the table. If you guys haven't seen this at the Diamondback facility, if you've been to a game, they've designated 2 seats that are forever wrapped around, and they're for the soldiers. And it's pretty special.
Welcome. Can you hear me? Okay. My name is Cheryl Voren. I am the group leader of Heart to Heart Quilts. We are group number 928 of the Quilt of Valor Foundation. The Quilts of Valor began over 20 years ago. In 2003, Catherine Roberts had a son who was deployed in Iraq. He sat on top of a Humvee. He was a gunner. She said she was 10 seconds away from panic 24 hours a day. One night, Catherine had a dream. Catherine is a little tiny lady. She's shorter than the one that was up here helping with the table. She's very quiet, very demure, and a mighty power. She said the dream was as valid as real life. She saw a young man sitting on the side of his bed in the middle of the night, hunched over. The permeating feeling was one of utter despair. She said, I could see his war demons clustered around him, dragging him down into an emotional gutter. Then, as if viewing a movie, I saw him next in a scene wrapped in a quilt. His whole demeanor had changed. It went from one of despair to one of hope and well-being. And the quilt had made the difference. She said the message of her dream was quilts equal healing. From this vision, the Quilts of Valor Foundation began. We now have over 11,000 members of the Quilts of Valor Foundation who serve across this country, actively working to fulfill the mission of the Quilts of Valor Foundation. The first Quilt of Valor was awarded in November 2003 at the Walter Reed Army Medical Center to a young soldier from Minnesota who had lost his leg in Iraq. Chaplain John Kellerson of the U.S. Army helped to facilitate that first award. As of July 31st of this year, on the Quilt of Valor website, which is qovf.org, 18,663 quilts were awarded so far this year. With 392,057 quilts awarded to date nationally that we know of. We are pushing on to almost 400,000 quilts awarded. What a great day that will be. The mission of the Quilts of Valor Foundation is to cover service members and veterans touched by war with comforting and healing quilts of valor. So I want to tell you a little bit about our process because some people don't understand what we do. So I have a little tutorial. We are honored and privileged to buy a lot of really nice fabric. We buy it by the bolt. It is not inexpensive. And the way we get it is by donations to our group. We never ask for donations. Our recipients cannot buy a quilt from us. It doesn't work that way. We have had it to where we were down to $60 in the bank and we were getting low on fabric. And all of a sudden here will come some money and it's always just enough. It's wonderful. So we take this really good fabric that the community pays for to help us honor our veterans. This award is not from just heart to heart. It is from our community in an effort to thank and honor those who have served our great nation. So we take this really good fabric and we whack it into little pieces after it's been starched and ironed. And then we put all those little pieces back together again. And we do it very carefully because if we want a square flat quilt, our seams have to be good. We have to have 1/4-inch seams. So I'm going to show you my seams on the back of this little sample. They're good 1/4-inch seams. It makes the block work. We take the blocks and we put them together with other blocks and sashing and other fabrics for borders, and we make a quilt top, much like the one that's hanging over here. That, along with batting, which is to the foundation's requirements, and a good backing, goes to a long armor. We've got a couple of long armors in our group. When I started, I was it. I was the long armor. Now we have got more long armors in our group than any other group that I know of. That's not an inexpensive thing. A long arm is anywhere from $8,000 to $25,000 just for the machine. And we've got multiples. We're blessed. So we put that on a big long arm table. We put the backing, then the batting, then the top, and it gets stitched. And the long armors do the stitching. Then it comes off, it gets trimmed up, and it goes to somebody in the group to do binding. A lot of people who do quilting don't like to do binding. We have someone who does. So we take and we cut more fabric into 2.5-inch strips, and that goes around the quilt to close it all in and keep it together. That's our process for making these. After it's made, then we get to award it. So our recipients today will receive their Quilt of Valor, a pillowcase, and a certificate. This award unequivocally says, thank you
for your service, your sacrifice, your valor, your dedication in serving our nation. And we wanted to bring you a 3-part message from our hearts. First, we honor you. We honor you for your service. We honor you for leaving all that you held dear to go stand in harm's way at a time of crisis, protecting us here from the effects of war. We are a blessed nation. We have been protected. It has been written by an unknown author that a veteran or active service member is someone who at one point in their life wrote a blank check made payable to the United States of America for an amount up to and including their life. Our quilters know and acknowledge that freedom is not free. The cost of our freedom is paid for by the dedication of lives of men and women like the veterans being awarded here today. And we sincerely thank you for your service. We get to award 7 today. This quilt is meant to offer comfort to the recipients, to remind them that we do care and we are grateful for their service. The top of the quilt, like this one right here, I want to tell you a word about this one. 10 years ago, we did an award at Point of View RV Park in Mesa. There was a little lady there named Swanee. Swanee saw this pattern somewhere and said she had to make it. She didn't know why, but she had to, so she did. She was at that award. After the award, she brought it up and handed it to me and said that was why she made it. So it has hung at nearly every one of our awards. There's been a couple that were outside and the weather was not going to allow it. So here's your sample. A blessing. This quilt is not a charity quilt, nor is it a blanket. Don't tell a quilter that you've given them a blanket. The quilt consists of the 3 layers held together by quilting stitches. And we think of it in this way. The top of the quilt with its many colors, shapes, and fabrics represents the communities and the many individuals that we are. The batting, the filler, is the center of the quilt. It gives it its warmth. It represents our hope that this quilt will bring warmth, comfort, peace, and healing to the individual who receives it. The backing is the strength that supports the other layers. It represents the strength of the recipient, the support of his or her family, our community, and our nation. Each stitch that holds the layers together represents the love and gratitude of the makers. The binding covers the outer edges of the quilt and represents the ideals, hopes, dreams, goals, and unity of our nation, setting us apart from all other nations. There is a label affixed to the back of the Quilt of Valor. The label is what designates it as a Quilt of Valor. It contains the recipient's name and the names of those who worked on the quilt. We put Heart to Heart Quilt because, as you can see, our names will not all fit on that little bitty label. You cannot purchase a Quilt of Valor. It has to be awarded and recorded. It can only be acquired through an award. As we work on these Quilts of Valor, we think about who might be going to receive them, what the pattern is like, what our communities are like. We talk about our families. We talk about what's coming next, how many we have, how many we get to award, and who might be going to receive a quilty hug. So we have a tradition. You're going to have to deal with it. Once you're awarded, part of that award is to be wrapped in your quilt. We call it a quilty hug. So you have to suck it up and accept a quilty hug. Please know that these quilts are made with love. This is a one-time, lifetime award. We hope that you will keep your quilts with you as a tangible reminder that the citizens across this land are forever in your debt. And it is our honor to honor you with a Quilt of Valor. And we thank you for allowing us to perform this action. To our recipients, we always say, welcome home. Thank you for your service, your sacrifice, your dedication, and your valor. So now we get to award. Herman is going to be assisted by Dwight. Shirley and Marilyn are going to wrap. Lizzie is going to help be sure we do things in the right order. And afterwards, then we will turn the time back over to Pastor Dean, and he will complete the service, and then we'll all gather to congratulate the recipients. And please do congratulate them. Okay.
Just to kind of let you know, one thing that we did mention is it is a one-time
I didn't.
quilting, but if for any reason the quilt is ever destroyed, fire, or you just wear it out, you notify us and we will replace it.
You can always have it.
Don't laugh at me, but I'm getting old. These are always in my wallet. We have Michael Holcomb. Michael Holcomb was in the Air Force. He was in the National Guard as well. I just see two different things here. I'm sorry. He was in the Vietnam era from 1961 to 1975. He was at Vandenberg Air Force Base. And trying to go down the rest of this here. Give me a second. That's it. We don't have a lot on your bio here. So I will. Tracking station technician. Okay. Michael Holcomb, United States Air Force, Vietnam. The Quilts of Valor Foundation wishes to recognize you for your service to our nation. We consider it a privilege to do so. Though we may never know the extent of your sacrifice to protect and defend the United States of America, we award you this Quilt of Valor as an expression of gratitude from a grateful nation. Now you're going to get hugged. Next, we'd like to invite up Ken D4. And we do need a chair for him. Step up. I'll go. Kenneth D4. Veteran Air Force, 1958 to 1963, where he served during the Cold War from 1947 to 1991. Kenneth D4, United States Air Force, Cold War. The Quilts of Valor Foundation wishes to recognize you for your service to our nation. We consider it a privilege to do so. Though we may never know the extent of your sacrifice to protect and defend the United States of America, we award you this Quilt of Valor as an expression of gratitude from a grateful nation. Oh.
Please. Please.
Righty. Next, Wesley Reese. Wesley Reese, Army, 1969 to 1970 in Vietnam. He was stationed in Cambodia. He was in the 9th Infantry, 101st Airborne. He received the National Defense Service Medal, the Vietnam Service Medal, Republican of Vietnam Campaign Medal, Combat Infantryman Badge, and the Expert Marksmanship Badge. Wesley Reese, the Quilts of Valor Foundation wishes to recognize you for your service to our nation. We consider it a privilege to do so. Though you may never know the extent of the sacrifice to protect and defend the United States of America, we award you this Quilt of Valor as an expression of gratitude from a grateful nation. Thank you, sir. Good job, Wes. Next up, we have Johnny Turner. Johnny Turner, Army, 1968 to 1971 in Vietnam. He was a helicopter engineer mechanic. Johnny Turner, United States Army, Vietnam era. The Quilts of Valor Foundation wishes to recognize you for your service to our nation. We consider it a privilege to do so. Though we may never know the extent of sacrifice to protect and defend the United States of America, we award you this Quilt of Valor as an expression of gratitude from a grateful nation. Thank you, Mr. Turner. Next up, we have Kenneth Schultz. Kenneth Schultz, United States Air Force, 1982 to 2003. He was in the Persian Gulf between 1990 and 1991. He was in Operation Enduring Freedom between 2000 and 2014. He was in the Gulf War, including Desert Shield and Desert Storm from 1990 to 1991. He was in Bitburg, Germany, Punsan, Korea, Okinawa, Japan, Hickman, Hawaii, Camisa, Sicily, Italy, and Qatar. Kenneth Schultz, United States Air Force, Persian Gulf War, Desert Shield, Desert Storm, Operation Enduring Freedom. This Quilt of Valor Foundation wishes to recognize you for your service to our nation. We consider it a privilege to do so. Though we may never know the extent of your sacrifice to protect and defend the United States of America, we award you this Quilt of Valor as an expression of gratitude from a grateful nation. Thank you, sir. Deanne Young, Dean, sorry. Dean Young, Army, 1985 to 2007, Operation Iraqi Freedom, I'm sorry. Dr. Dean Young, United States Army, Cold War Operation, Iraqi Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom. The Quilts of Valor Foundation wishes to recognize you for your service to our nation. We consider it a privilege to do so. Though we may never know the extent of sacrifice to protect your sacrifice to protect and defend the United States of America, we award you this Quilt of Valor as an expression of gratitude from a grateful nation. Thank you, sir. And last but not least, Sean Ortiz. Sean Ortiz, United States Air Force, 1987 to 2022. She was in Operation Enduring Freedom. She was stationed at Hahn Air Force Base in Germany during the Cold War and the fall of the Berlin Wall. In 1992, she was deployed to Incirk Air Base, Turkey, in support of Operation Provide Comfort. 2, she was deployed to El Jabbar, Kuwait, in support of Operation Southern Watch and Operation Enduring Freedom. In 2007, she was deployed to Guantanamo Bay Naval Base in support of Operation Enduring Freedom and a global war on terror. In 2010, she was deployed to Kusan Air Force Base in South Korea in support of Air Expeditionary Force Operations 2016. She was deployed to Bagram Air Force Base in Afghanistan in support of Operation Freedom and Sentinel and NATO Resolute Support Mission. Sean Ortiz, United States Air Force, Operation Enduring Freedom and Other Wars and Conflicts. The Quilts of Valor Foundation wishes to recognize you for your service to our nation. We consider it a privilege to do so. Though we may never know the extent of your sacrifice to protect and defend the United States of America, we award you this Quilt of Valor as an expression of gratitude from a grateful nation.
What a blessed and special day. We're very fortunate to have been invited here. We're very grateful. We thank you to each of our recipients. Those who came from the Vietnam era didn't have a choice. We need to remember that. And yet they served, and they served with honor and valor. Those who came later did have a choice, and we need to remember that. And we thank them for their service and their valor. So this concludes our part of today, and we're going to turn the time back over to Dr. Dean.
Communion, praise God. Amen. So if you would stand, then we're gonna pass out communion to everybody. There's 2 cups. You receive it. Separate them. Bottom cup is bread. Just so you know that. And you don't have to take it if you feel, this is your first time here or whatever. Don't feel bad if you say, I'm gonna pass. Some of you might, come from a different denomination or different, and so you have your teachers at your church or your denomination. So don't feel bad if you tell them that you're gonna pass. That's understandable. Okay, because I know the Bible tells us to examine ourselves before we take communion, and we got to discern. Talked about that, right? Discern between the bread and the juice about Christ's body. That's what it represents. And we do this every week. It doesn't get old. Because Jesus said, as often as you do this in remembrance of me. And so we like to do it every week because Jesus is coming back one day. We're going to have communion with him forever. Amen.
Jesus Christ gave his body for us so we could have everlasting life. And the soldiers of our America, a lot of them gave their life so we could have a wonderful life. Thank them for that. Thank Jesus for his body. The blood of Christ is given unto us. He suffered a lot, so we wouldn't have to suffer. And he's given us the option of everlasting life. All we have to do is see it. Thank you, Jesus. Here you go. Thank you for this wonderful ceremony. We ask that you watch over these people as they travel and go back to their homes. Thank you for giving them to us for what they've done. Appreciate everything they do. Thank you for all the blessings.